That otherwise it's sort of like an unfair take on atheism. So like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think everyone's like, oh no, why don't I have something to fall back on if they're atheistic? So
Yeah.
I'm glad that Mike White brought it up, and I'm glad that he didn't land on her being like, oh no, I have no belief system. This is awful.
I do want to say one thing about Kate too, because I think that of the three of them, Kate was the most other-centered, I would say. I would say that Jack and Lori were both pretty self-centered at time, and it could cause conflict. I think it was interesting to see Kate, who, yes, is a Trump supporter, probably, not be villainized and to show the really great traits that she has.
Let's reality test.
Welcome, friends, to Reality Test. What is reality testing, you may ask? Well, it's something we all do every day, maybe with our loved ones over dinner, with coworkers at the water cooler, etc., when we check our subjective or personal emotions, thoughts, and so forth against objective or sort of more agreed upon fact-based reality. Although, because Dr. Ray and I, Dr. Kay, are social constructionists, we don't actually believe there's one true objective reality, but rather our own personal versions of it constructed in the context of relationships. But you get the idea. So here in Reality Test, we're going to be testing the castmate realities and the producer antics of our favorite reality TV shows against what we know as licensed psychologists about the reality out here, off of our TVs. We hope you'll join us as we attempt to reality test. That's it. Thanks, y'all. Now check out our campy theme song.
Are you feeling stressed? Your head's all messed? Well, let's forget all the rest. Fuck it, we're blessed, because it's time to talk reality test. Come with us. Let's reality test.
Welcome to Reality Test. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Dr. Kay. Feel free to check in and take a seat wherever you like. We're going to be going our way over to Thailand for the White Lotus finale, and we're going to recap it.
We are. Yes.
I'm so excited.
The big, bold, the beautiful. I think because this season in particular had a little Southern charm connection that I think we all found out about. I think it's particularly connected, though we'd probably do it anyway, even if it were not connected to Southern charm.
So true. Like we did Bridgerton, for example. It was like a little foray outside of the reality TV world, but you're so right. We definitely have a clear connection with the Ratliffs, so I'm into it.
Yes.
And also, just real quick, we are psychotherapists, but not your therapist or the therapist of people on the show. And this is not reality TV, so that's even easier to imagine. We don't actually give therapy to Victoria. Take our comments about mental health and diagnosis loosely with grains of salt, with grains of salt, because we can't assess them personally because they don't exist. So, fun fact. I will also say, we're going to have another episode next week where we're going to have about White Lotus, where we're going to talk about our top 5 moments from the whole season. So this will get us through the ending that just happened, because that's what everyone's thinking about and buzzing about, is with the one we just watched. And then next week we'll be able to kind of go back and think globally and reflect on what stuck with us weeks later.
So excited. Cannot wait to go into that top 5. It's been a hell of a season, a very memeable season, I would say.
Yes. I've seen some really funny ones. I love the one of Victoria when she's hearing about the time at the monastery and her face is like delighted that she was right. So someone was like, anytime I'm right, anytime I send you this, it means I knew I was right.
Yes. I thought her name was Piper. Or who's Piper?
Piper's the daughter.
Oh,
the mom's name is Victoria, but the mom's real name is Parker. So that makes it confusing.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
Parker
right.
Posey.
Parker Posey, Piper, daughter, Victoria. Yes, she was incredible. I would love to be Victoria's therapist. That sounds very fun.
I know.
Lorazepam.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's so true. I have some, we'll come back to her, but I love Parker Posey so much. Like, she was in Dazed and Confused. Did you watch Dazed and Confused, that movie?
I think so. Many a moons ago.
She's a camp counselor.
High school,
okay, yeah. So it sort of didn't stick with you as well. Yeah. I watched it a lot continually, pretty much. Also like Fast Times and some of the other ones, Dazed and Confused. No, I mean, Hot American Summer. She's a camp counselor and like a dick. And it's fantastic. And then she was in the Christopher Guest movies like Best in Show and all that. And I just I'm obsessed. I've been obsessed with her for many years, Party Girl and so forth. So to see her in this, I just was like, all my favorite things coming together. And she was had a fabulous role. Did you see, sorry, I have one more thing. I just have to really quickly rattle off.
Of course.
I was thinking about like who is the like main focus of the season, like obviously Rick and Chelsea seem to be like the big plot line because always it's who dies, right? Like that's important. And sure enough, like in the cast art, they are centered and then like forward, so that makes sense together, which I love. It's not just Rick. But I also noticed in the cast artwork, it's like one of them at least, where they center people. They also centered Parker Posey in front of her like group.
Oh,
and they also centered on the other side Michelle Monaghan as Jacqueline amongst her group, which I guess makes sense because she's the most famous of the three friends. And then they also had
I think the other one who was in Zone of Interest, the one who was the lawyer, I actually think she had kind of more of an arc than Jacqueline.
Lori had way more of an arc.
Lori,
yeah. She's great. She's also a New Yorker in the show and stuff. She's fabulous. I loved her character and her plot line way more myself as well. So that was weird to me that Michelle Monaghan was sort of the forward of that group. That's why I was like, maybe because she's the most famous of the group, because I don't know otherwise. Yeah. And also, at least it wasn't Kate, who's the Trump supporter. Why is the person whose name is mine as Trump supporter? Sorry, that was
not
yelling.
Fair.
I'm not happy.
No, it's not fair. But actually, I think that Zone of Interest person, maybe she wasn't when she was filming, but she had a hell of a year because she's been in a few banging movies. Zone of Interest, and then one other one that was based on some sort of play that my partner knew and I did not know, that I'm forgetting.
Was she in the Gilded Age too? I feel like I saw her in a commercial for that. I don't know.
She might have been. She's kind of had a heck of a year, which is cool. I love seeing women who are not like 20, like taking off. I think it's really rad.
Yeah, same. I totally agree. It's so nice to like know Carrie Coon. Okay. It's so nice to know that you don't have to like be the like, 14-year-old entering into the field type of thing that, and also I think women in particular are seen as more beautiful later in the years than they used to be, which is also lovely.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I actually think
she is in Gilded Age. She is in Gilded Age.
Oh, yeah. She's all over the map. I actually think that the Schwarzenegger kid had the biggest arc of
the Ratliffs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of do. Mm-hmm. I felt like he was actually the most developed character in that. But
so was
crew.
Lockie, I feel like, too. Like, Lockie wasn't developed because he's not developed. Like, because he's still young and he's still figuring himself out and he's a people pleaser. Yeah. But I think he also had quite a big arc. Like, died, came back. And also had like, true. We learned a lot about his people pleasing ways and so forth.
This is true. It's interesting that two of the siblings got centered. I didn't really feel like Piper, now that I got much of an arc at all. I didn't really understand her character. And I wanted to. I genuinely wanted to understand her. And I don't feel like I did.
Yeah. I have one more thing I'll add about that when we get to it, that part of the finale. But I agree. Like, she was underutilized, and that was the big problem, right? Is like they didn't have enough room for how many people they were trying to explore, which I have another thought about as well, but we'll get there.
Yes,
like I think it's there. That is the biggest probably critique. I want more. That's not a problem.
Yeah. Just more. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And people have been saying that this is the weakest season. I don't know. I don't really care. I genuinely enjoy watching every season of this show. And so we could split hairs about what's the best and what's the least. But I want him to keep making this for as long as he wants, because it's just a pleasure to watch, in my opinion.
It's such a pleasure. I love it. Yeah, I love this season. I mean, I don't even think, like you said, I love that. We don't need to rank order or like decide based on whatever. It doesn't need to be what's the best and worst. They're all good and bad. They all have good things and bad things with them.
Right. I was listening to a podcast today that pointed out some of the plot flaws, and I agree with like that. They just didn't quite
like things that weren't resolved. Yeah.
Yeah. One of which I was like, I had noticed at the time. I was like, what? And the other ones I was like, oh yeah, you're right. That never really turned into anything. So there was a lot that they put out there, and not everything got its due, if you will.
Yes.
But we can talk about that
I think
too.
Well, and that's a perfect way to leave off, because that relates to my first point when we start the recap. So maybe we'll just do a quick check-in if you would like to do that, and then we'll get right into that point again.
I love it. What is my check-in for this week? Let's see. I loved finishing White Lotus. I was out of town last week in DC. Oh, that's what I'll check in about. I love going to DC. Well, it's hard because what I do there is annoying, but getting easier, I guess. But what I really like about going there is I now have a routine where I see certain friends on certain nights, and we kind of do the same thing every single time. It's like I see my one friend Wednesday night. Then, maybe go out to dinner with my partner Thursday night. Then Friday night, a group of us get together. And then Saturday, we all go and watch movies all day at a theater called the AFI. And it's just like a really fun way to wrap. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's like a lot of work, but it's really fun to, after that work, get to like see people. And I find routines to be very grounding. So I just like going there and getting to see my people. It's great.
And yeah, relationships also grounding, to be in relationship connection. Love that. And also people far enough away, like it's an 8-hour drive or something. It's not easy to just pop down and see them. So to have it be needed is a delight.
It's a huge privilege that now we get to do this 3 times a year. And granted, it involves a lot of work before, but then when I get there and I see them, it's just like, it's because adult friendships are hard and you have to keep up with people. And it's nice to be able to do that through this position. So I'm grateful for that.
I love that. That's so nice. What a lovely privilege indeed, but also just like joy. What a joy.
It is. It's really nice. It's soul affirming.
Soul affirming, a great phrase, or like I guess like 2 words. Great. It's a compound word.
Yeah. Yes. What about you, dear Dr. Kay? What is on your mind and heart this week?
Well, there's 2 things, I guess, sort of. Yeah. One is the concert, which I'll just say the concert that I organized that was like really fun and went well. It did not go well organizing it. That's why it was like a baby resistance that we were able to have it despite the efforts of the oppressive systems around us. So I was very happy it went without a hitch. And like you said, thank you for that phrase. I think it did mostly. And I felt good about it. I was like relieved. I fell asleep so quickly when I got home. I had this whole plan. I had a bottle of Veuve at home to have with my husband. And then I like fell asleep in my chair before we even had it. So it's actually still in the fridge.
I was looking forward to you getting that bottle. Yeah. I'm sad that didn't happen for you.
I know. I kept waking up and being like, I want to have it. And then he kept being like, but you're sleeping. I'm like, I know. And I want to have it. So I just saved it. We'll have it soon. We still haven't had it yet, but it was great. It was still nice. We still were talking a lot first and talking like processing it. So it was fun. And then our local paper wrote about it too, which was cool. So then I got to think about it again the next couple of days, which is nice. Last but not least, I got my lip my lip pierced today, and now I have like a hoop in it. So if you're watching the video, that's what that is. That's not food.
It looks awesome.
Yes, I love it a lot. It's really like, it was a little bit impulsive, and I liked that so much because it's been so long. It's been like 20 years since I had a new piercing. And also I was like, I was thinking about our generation and how like even like a lot of people have sleeves and how like you can be professional and have bod mod. And so I feel like maybe when I was going through my training, I would have been a little bit more nervous about having something on my face, but I really am not now. So I was like, fuck it. Here we go. Didn't even tell my husband.
License.
Yeah, I got my license. Exactly. Try to stop me now. I also have my doctorate. Can't take that from me.
Right. Nope.
So I didn't even tell my husband. I just like went and did it midday. I got home and he was here and he was just sort of like, I was like, yep, I got it pierced. So he loves it. He thinks it's sexy. Thank you.
Yay. You look fabulous. And the concert was awesome. And yes, both things are great.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's fucking get this thing going. I'm excited. It's like hard not to be thinking about it. I mean, because we're about to talk about it probably, but also there's just lots of little like pieces that have such interesting like threads with itself and then with things outside in the world. Because, the like liberalism, the like friends that have different political views and stuff like that. I will say, we do know that, what's his name? Mike White, who's the writer and director. We know that he has said out loud in press that he purposely was trying to make this one about spirituality and religion. So we know that's a theme that was intentional. So one of the questions we're going to ask ourselves as we go through the recap is, where are the threads that are like the ending threads, the big bang that he ends with around religion and spirituality? So when we see that, we'll sort of bring it up. The other questions we're going to ask are, where are there moments where we might have wanted them? Well, first it was like, what are some of the psychological themes that we are noticing as psychotherapists and clinical and counseling psychologists and licensed and so forth? So what are we noticing about mental health themes as we go through? And then also, where do we think they could have done more about it? So like psychological concepts they could have added. Or you could also think of it as our normal segment about what do we wish people knew more about? That's another way of putting it.
Love. So excited to get in there. Yes.
So that's how we'll do the segments. So we're not doing segments. We're doing 3 questions. So where I wanted to start was at we return to how we start the episode is related to what you were saying about resolution, because literally the first message of the finale is the monk telling us about the fact that we wake up with an edgy energy, we're thinking about what's in store, we try to solve it, and that our trying to solve it is what makes it harder for us, and we have more anxiety. So he basically says we all want resolution, but the only way to not suffer because of that is to let go of that, because actually there is no resolution to life's questions. So like, I was kind of like, when I've been hearing these critiques about the fact there were things that weren't resolved, I was like, isn't that the point? Like, that was the whole point. Yeah. Like the whole opening note was about like, you're all going to want resolution, but like, I'm going to let you be curious about it. Because I love when people do that, and they do that intentionally all the time. People do that where they'll be like, here's a thing that you get to imagine now because I'm taking off, you know, like I'm gonna stop now with writing this plot line or whatever. So the things, I also wrote like a little list of things that didn't have resolution, I thought. And I just, you know, there were sort of things that either I just didn't give a fuck about, or things where I was kind of like, I like that we get to imagine that. So I thought the fact he started with that message was powerful.
Yes, and probably speaking to the audience. I do think there are some things where it's like ambiguous lack of resolution is my favorite kind of ending. I hate an ending that's like tied in too neat of a bow, because it's just not realistic.
Yeah.
There were certain things where it felt maybe like more amiss somewhere or something than the lack of resolution thing. But yes, I'm excited to go through these and talk about them.
One thing that won't come up, for example, is that they cut a scene, or they cut like a whole plot line about Lori, because Lori has a gender diverse child, and they cut it because they cut it when Trump was inaugurated. They cut it purposely because they were like, now it's too important and we can't do them a justice. So like, we have to take it out because we won't be able to, it's too complicated and too much we have to do to really do it justice. And we don't have time for that in the show. And now that Trump's inaugurated, it's even more important. So like, so that's shitty.
That is very shitty. The other one I was thinking, do you remember when the Trump, I guess Kate's her name, but now that you said that, I remember her name. Do you remember when she went to breakfast and saw Victoria and was like, we had a baby shower together or whatever. And then that just never came up again. That felt like it was going to become something, and it was just left it like genuinely, not just like a false start of a plot line. It felt like... And this is the podcast that I said today, noticed this one. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. Because that was really interesting and charged. And they just kind of dropped it in a way that I thought was kind of weird. But,
yeah. I saw it as like, it was giving us a chance to see how Victoria hates socializing. Like, she's in the social elite, but she doesn't like, you know, like if she doesn't know who you are, she's not going to like give you the time of day. Like, she hates the people on the boat. She hates the people, you know, it's like whatever, like that's sort of like her shtick. And so I felt like it gave us a chance for us to understand that about Victoria, because all she had to do was be like, oh yeah, great. It's great to see you. But instead she was like, you know, like she was so rude. And so it gave us like insight, I think, into her character in particular. But I also felt like Kate was the one who was like looking at them and like wanted to almost like seeing how close the kids were and stuff. Like, I feel like she was wanting that like energy a little bit. And so like then the fact she got like blunted on that had a ripple effect for the friends too. Like, so I think there was like little bits of it that had little ripple effects that were subtle, but I agree they never talked about it again. Like, Kate didn't try again to talk to them, or, you know, and Victoria didn't talk about it again.
I can totally see that. I think for me, it felt a bit more intentionally charged than that. I like the
character
subtle ripple
building
effect. Yeah, it felt like this is going to be something between these people. And then it was just dropped. It felt significant.
Maybe it was that they had to have a reason why. Maybe they used it as a reason why those groups never connected. Because like in some ways you would think, because there's like Piper and there's like, and then also the Saxon who would like clearly be interested in the celebrity or whatever. Like maybe it was like a way of being like, this is now why we're going to keep them separate, even though they end up on the boat together at the end, or even though we see them like at similar places. This is why they don't ever connect again, is because there was a weird moment at breakfast.
Yeah, it could be. Could be.
Because I agree. Like, it did feel like there might be some follow through on it. I don't know. It's one of the ones I didn't really mind. I kind of was like, I don't really care enough about it. But it's also possible they had a scene they cut. Like, it seems like they cut a lot. So I'll talk about one of them a little bit later too. But yeah, exactly.
And that would have given us more insight to Victoria potentially. Like, if there was this rift or rupture, like understanding what that was about, I think would have been really interesting.
I thought she just didn't remember her. You felt like there was a rift?
I felt like it was more than not remembering. To me, I felt like she did remember and was like, I don't want to
pretending she didn't. Yeah. I feel like she's meant to be like a snobby elite. Like somebody who feels like I don't need to like, because she's the one who's like, we're so like rich and famous. Like she's like real, you know, like she feels like there's no, even the old kings and queens didn't live as good as we do. Like I think that version of an elite person, I could see her character being the one that shows the version that's like not even entertaining somebody who's not in that circle or whatever. I felt like that was the part we were getting to know about Victoria that's not like the rest of her family. But yeah, it's true too. Like it almost seemed weird to the kids too. So like then that doesn't make sense unless there's something else. Who said it? One of them was sort of like, Mom, what? And then
that was really that was rude. It might have been Lachlan but I'm not sure. Or Piper.
I was thinking that too.
That's her name.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's fair though. Like, yeah, if she was hiding some other rift too, then that would be fucking annoying to not come back to that.
Yes. But the other ones, I see there's
things we did have, things we did include. Yes. So we return to everyone's subplots at the beginning of this. So first it's like the monk talking. There's no resolution to life questions. So then they start rattling off the like, here's where we are with everybody. We know Rick. They start with Rick. He clearly didn't cheat on Chelsea because they're showing him waking up in a chair alone in the room, fully clothed. Comes out to Frank stabbing a homemade dummy. Rick leaves despite Frank trying to stop him and also the two ladies who got off the elevator trying to stop him. And then they go into the hotel room together, the three of them, and Rick leaves. Guy Talk and Mook, we flash over to them. We start to really see clearly that Mook isn't interested if Guy Talk isn't going to be like a motivated or even violent person. But when he says he might be able to find the thieves, she gets excited again. So then she's reinitiated with him or reignited. Jackie comes out to Kate reading on the couch of the three friends, offers to go ask Lori about the breakfast. So that tells us that like she's trying to like repair with Lori, finds her passed all the way out. I was worried Lori wasn't there, right? I think that was purposeful. The way they showed her on getting in the cab and we don't see her again until she's found by Jackie. I was like, what if she's not in there? She was sleeping very heavily and Jackie's like, hey, I'm sorry, you know, and Lori's like, not right now, basically, because she's tired and sleeping and also contemplating something. Like we see like her wheels turning. She's definitely stressed out because last night sucked for her. But we can tell she's contemplative as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. By the way, that was another thing I felt was left untouched was the thieves. Like they just get to go, which is something we'll talk about because I actually do get why they get to just go and be fine. Mm-hmm. But also Lori saw the shit they stole in his room. We never hear twice about that. Like why would that guy have that stuff? It was like the gold stuff and like the bracelet and thing. So it's like weird we see her like clock it as she gets out of the window or whatever. Did you notice that? It was like on the bureau.
I didn't actually, but as you're saying it, I do. Oh, that's a nice detail.
Right. And I love that they included it. I was like, how smart. Like, what a cool thing. Mm-hmm. Like, what a neat idea. But like, she might not have known it was from the store. So she might have just thought it was weird. But then at least I feel like we should have heard that. I don't know. But yeah, that got left undone too, which is kind of fun. We get to decide what happened. Mm-hmm. Then Piper and Lachlan, or Lockie, get home. Piper asks Parker asks Piper how it was. Piper says, let's just talk about it later. Then Parker Posey asks Lachlan. So Victoria asks Lachlan, her son. It's like, okay, but then tell us, Lockie. Like, you know, assuming that she can at least get Lachlan to tell her because he's the people pleaser in the family. He gets exasperated and says, I don't know, okay? And so to those of us who have been clocking his, you know, people-pleasing tendencies throughout the season, we're like, look at this moment, this little grain of this little seed of a rebellion. So we see where that leads, unfortunately, but it was a good moment. And then Belinda sees Ponchai at breakfast while she's with her son. The son kind of like pokes fun at them like in a playful way. And she's just sort of like, I don't know how I feel about him, basically. And he's like, well, he likes you. And then they talk about the business.
I thought their relationship was really cute, Belinda and her son.
I loved it. I loved the two of them. Mm-hmm. They were so great. They were so funny. I really liked Zion, and he really had a very small part, but I liked him a lot. I'll finish just this one about the Piper telling about the monastery, and then we'll switch on over. So Perfect. Piper then tells mom and dad about the monastery. And this scene is like so rich with facial expressions. Like the facial expressions are everything. I literally was like, I just kept like laughing and being like, this is the best scene. I just kept saying that to my husband. I was like, this is the best scene. So like Parker Posey, like gold star for the scene, major. But so same thing with Jason Isaacs. His faces were great. So it starts with Piper being like gently positive about it, giving some praise. He's like, that's great that you can live without money, because he'd love that if they could just be okay with him not having money. Then Piper suddenly breaks down with the truth that she does need the comforts like air conditioning and food that's organic and more tasteful. She hates the fact that she needs those comforts, and she hates the fact there are people who don't get access to what they get access to. So like, you know, it's like, yeah, a specific kind of privileged youngster who like, you know, wants to be able to prove that they can live like those who are less fortunate, and yet like even just that as an issue is like already problematic. And then the way that so whole thing. And then so along the way during that, Parker Posey's face just gets like better and better and like happier and happier. And then eventually she does like empathize first, where she's like, I'm so sorry, honey. You know, she's like feeling for her, but she's also gleeful, of course. And she ends up saying like, I get it. Like no one in the history of the world has lived as well as we have, and has lived better, which is so wild. And then she says, well, therefore it would be offensive not to enjoy it. Every bit of our privilege. So then it ends with her hugging Piper, which is very cute. And I rewatched it to be able to do the notes. So there were little things I noticed the second time that I didn't notice the first time. And one of the things I noticed this time was that she did really hug Piper first. Like she didn't go right to the thumbs up. She like held her and like felt badly for, you know, she like was trying to comfort Piper for real at first. And then she sort of like turns to Jason Isaacs, to Tim, her husband, and like gives him the thumbs up. Like, we're good. Like, you know, it's so funny. And his face was so great too. It was just so good. Gold acting, gold star.
So rich. And I feel for her because as the Buddhist monk said, like a lot of American kids seem to come there because they feel a sense of emptiness from capitalism. And she's kind of facing two opposing forces. She doesn't feel comfortable in the life that she has, and yet she can't quite give it up. So she's kind of, what do they say? An act, and therefore from Buddhism, she's in a prison of her own making, right?
Yes,
which is very fitting as a spiritual
also,
theme.
It means like turn the banana, change your perspective, and it will change, you know, the outcome. Because I think she is too comfortable almost, which makes her worry psychologically that she's so comfortable in it or something. Yeah. So she can change her perspective perhaps without changing her lifestyle. But I do think it's a noble venture, but I agree that it's one that's typically like, or I agree with the fact that it was important how the monk brought up the emptiness, but it's also like a typical journey, I think, for young, especially American kids, where it's like on like empty advocacy, like it's on like empty saviorism problems.
Yes.
And appropriation.
A very relatable American sort of story that she went through. And now she's realizing, I think, that she'd rather be rich, which is its own set of things. And it's like, because I think capitalism causes people to live in extremes, right? I'm either this or I'm giving it all up, right? Those are two pretty intense extremes. She could probably find a middle ground that's a little more like authentic to who she is and doesn't feel like such a major shift. But I don't think she's there yet. And I hope she gets some good therapy and can get there.
Yes. They have resources for therapy. Do the therapy.
Yes.
I love it.
Indeed. But, is it my turn? Yes.
It is now. Yay.
So Lockie and Saxton finally talk about it. So Saxton says to Lockie, no one's going to make you a man, okay? You got to do it yourself, which is a weird thing to say.
Yes. It's so funny. And also, like, it's so like gendered, problematic. Like, so I think Tim's role, like as the dad, is problematically gendered. Obviously, he's like the one who has to save the family, or has, you know. So he like that's like a lot of gender role stuff. But yeah, Saxon too. Like, no one's gonna make you a man. You have to make yourself. When Saxon had spent the whole beginning of the vacation like telling him what to do and telling him how to be a man and how to, you know, and now he's like, you got to do it yourself, which is crazy. But then also, yeah, like jerk yourself off is like the underlying current to like the way that also is there. Like, I think that's funny as well.
Yep. And poor Lockie offers to join him in the pool, but Saxton plans to read. I saw a discourse online that Lockie's like a sociopath or whatever. I don't think that's a fair read of his behavior. Why? I think it's because he lied about remembering. And it's like, he said he didn't remember what happened the previous night when maybe he did remember jerking off his brother.
No, he remembered while he was in the monastery. Yeah, right. They showed him having a memory and he was like, fuck.
and he didn't quite want to sit with it. Right. It was more complicated than that. And also it's, I don't know, it's kind of an unsavory.
Also lying isn't necessarily sociopath. Yeah. I think the problem is he's like it's like the point of his character to me is like, it's like if you were such a people pleaser that you went this far, like, because a lot of the last, and I'm like a youngest child, so I relate to it, is like that is a big part of your role, is to like keep the peace in the family and so be people pleasing and so forth. And he even brings up like, I'm a people pleaser in a family of narcissists. They're the sociopaths. They're the narcissists, you know, which also means he might be too, but it's not for lies because he lied, you know, or because he didn't remember it first or whatever. So yeah.
I didn't
He's the most self-aware, I felt like.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't see Piper as much of like a sociopath as the other ones. But I mean, I guess she did make her family come on this grand journey and lied to them, which is weird. But I don't know. She seemed to have something, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But
well, just the way that Locke says he's in a family of narcissists is all I meant, because the narcissist is sociopathic usually if it's the personality disorder kind. But also, yeah, exactly. I actually thought about her character too. I was like, how is she that? I was thinking about the part when he's at the pool dying and she just leaves and like Mita's there. Like no one's really checking on him, even though that would be weird. He was doing that. I feel like if he wasn't reading, I feel like they should have thought about it a little longer.
Yeah, that's true. Like should have checked on him. But yeah. I also saw a take, and I like this. You see a lot of takes on this show. So Dan Savage, I think, is kind of problematic. He's been biphobic in the past. But one thing he said about this scene in particular, because people's ick factors are like on 20, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, he kind of normalized that this is a fetish for some people, and that doesn't mean they would actually engage in this sort of act. Which I think was a nice like kink shaming sort of, or an anti-kink shaming attitude.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
But I would argue that what the show's representing is not that. They're actually representing that this is happening between two brothers, which is, I think, a slightly different thing. But
yeah. Well, the other thing is I think we see that Lachlan is maybe thinking about whether he's gay. Like there's like a moment where he's thinking about his brother's body and stuff. So I think there's also that part, which that should not be connected at all, of course, because that doesn't mean that, of course. But there's something about like he's discovering his sexuality, and he's also seeing his brother suffering, and he's also like a people pleaser, and he's also seen how much his brother talks about getting off. Like, and I get how your perspective of the world can get so warped by the people around you, and he is warpable, very warpable. He's getting warped by everybody. So I can see where he sees a logic to that is to us wild, because we're not in his situation. But like if he really is the only non-narcissist in a family of narcissists, then he's absorbing everybody's needs, and also like all he knows are their needs, and he doesn't know the bounds of those needs because he only knows what he sees. So he creates his own bounds of their needs based on the fact that he's just doesn't know. So he has to finish the line, if you will. So then he doesn't know where the line is anymore. And so like I feel like in some ways I liked that it was like the idea of like, can he be such a people pleaser to go that far? Because he doesn't have a sense of reality. It's like created by everyone around him.
I did feel like there was a sexualized vibe between him and his sister too, though, at some points. And I was like, so they were trying to say something. I'm still not sure what, and that's okay. It certainly got people talking.
That one was like almost Saxon. I felt like that was almost Saxon who had the sexualized vibe with Piper.
It was Saxton. And then there was a scene between Lachlan and Piper where they were like at the pool or something, and it was like a little weird. Like
he was asking about her being a virgin. Yeah,
it was weird. It was it just all was kind of weird. But
I thought of that as him like trying on Saxon's hat. Like, because he had just been with Saxon, and Saxon was like shitting on her. So like then he carried that energy into his interaction with her, and she just like got grossed out and left, of course. But also I think that was meant to show us that she is a virgin. Like, so like that was an interesting, weird, different thing. Like there was just, that was a weird scene, but I felt like it was him trying to be like a man the way that Saxon thinks it should be, and like failing at it miserably. Because also that's your fucking sister. And also like you don't even really know what you're talking about.
It was so weird. It's also weird how she wears like these baby doll dresses. At first I was like, is she gay? Because a typical gay journey is to like go stay in a foreign country for a few years to like figure yourself out. That happens. That happens a lot. So I was like, is she just gay? Does. Like, is that what's happening? And I don't know. Right? I still don't know the answer to that. But
yeah,
something's up.
That's
with
one
her.
of the things we get to decide on our own. Yeah.
Yes.
I do know she's not reciprocating any of the sexual vibes from anybody, which is like she's grounded. That's a grounded feature.
Yes. Good for her. Good for you, girl. And But anyway, so Lachlan says, "Are you mad at me or something?" And then Saxon says, "It's okay to worship me, but don't worship me. You know what I mean?"
Like pointing his dick.
And then Saxon goes, "Look, all you care about is getting off."
Lachlan.
And I saw
Lachlan.
Oh yeah, Lachlan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I saw you lying there, and I thought you looked a little left out. And I'm, a people pleaser. I just want to give everyone what they want. And I'm in a family full of narcissists. And it was so funny and a little on the nose. Like they kind of gave us that on the silver platter, but it was still funny. And yeah.
So much so on the silver platter that he didn't even finish the word narcissist, that Saxon cut him off. Like he didn't even let him finish the word narcissist, but like both out of like his own inability to see himself as a narcissist is what it felt like. Like it felt like proof, that he definitely is a narcissist too, which I thought was funny as well. Did you notice the book that Lockie was reading? It was like a wall of ocean or ocean wall or something. It was a wall of ocean. Mm-hmm. It's not a real book. I looked it up. Not a real book, but there's like some theories about what it's foreshadowing, because every time he's had a book, it's foreshadowed something. Like he's been reading something that's related to something. Yeah. So if you like look at the covers and shit, but the other ones have been real. Some of them have been real. They've been like what to do in a family narcissist or something like that. But this one was Wall of Ocean, and like I was thinking about how when he's like drowning, we'll talk about how that might come back up, but there's that piece. He also made these tsunami comments previously in the season, and he also we see the waves crashing on the rocks, which is like a theme among all the seasons. Like, so I feel like that was like meant to be part of the like thematic content that we get from Mike White, and this idea of like also foreshadowing Lockie in the water, and then also the idea that like if we were to take it to a metaphorical place, it's like the wall's emotional wall that like kind of gets taken down. Like if it's an ocean wall, that means it crashes, right? Like an ocean wall would stop, and so like that it comes crashing down. Like so much of the characters in this episode, where we like suddenly see the full picture, or we see how they found a new part of themselves, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, like fascinating. I like it.
Cool.
Yes. So then we've got Chelsea and Saxton talking about the laws of the universe. First we see Lori sees Kate and Jack at the pool and looks happy, then sad, then goes back inside. And Gaytuk asks Valentine about his friends' names. Valentine refuses to give their names. So
why Gaytuk? Yeah. Gaytuk, don't fucking ask him that. It was so obvious.
Yep. I know. It's like you just put that one in the back of your head. Think about that a little more.
Exactly.
And then from there, Chelsea and Saxon talk about the laws of the universe. I kind of loved their interactions, actually. I thought they were great. Kind of great. And I also love her with
Rick too.
Yeah.
See, I love
her with Rick too. And I felt that actually I saw more of her as a full person when Rick was away. Because Rick could be quite mean to her in a way that I think diminished her.
Yeah, when he's depressed and shit, he's rough, like real rough, like bad rough. And she that's almost like her kind of fetishization or something. Like there was something about it that she also liked, or like started to rely on. And then when she brings up the yin and yang comment, like the episode before this, that sort of makes it make sense. We're like, right, she's trying to get him to join her in her hope. I mean, it seems hopeless, but it's not, because then he does do it for like a scene or two, as we will see. But I also felt like this was our first, at least to me, maybe first moment that was definitely like a religious, spiritual reference, like, because that is like a version of spirituality. This woman who's written about those kinds of things, like being in groups and having. And so I liked that he went there, because obviously we hear a lot about Christianity and like whatever Catholicism stuff. And we also hear about like atheism and so forth. But this kind of version of a connected like spirituality, where there's like other kinds of forces at play, like that's much more where I align as spiritually or whatever, and sort of thinking the like universal connectedness and cosmic energy and da-da-da. So to me, I loved that this came up in this conversation, because it felt like the only way he did reference this version of sort of spirituality.
I liked it. And I really liked this show. I don't mean to be such a troll. I liked it. And a part of me felt, again, like it was a little too on the nose of explaining their dynamic. But it did help it make sense to me. And then I was able to see them from that perspective for the rest of the season.
The group yin and thing? Yang. Or are you saying, no, I'm not talking about that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this, her with Saxon talking about the book.
Oh,
that version, no, so yin and yang is Buddhism. That wouldn't be like universal connectedness. Yeah, that would be like Buddhism kind of stuff. This was like the conversation about the book that she read, where they're like, we're all in circles and we know some people and we don't know others. Yeah. And so like that book and those kinds of books, like another one is Many Lives, Many Masters, where they talk about having like super spirits that like are guide you. They're people that have died maybe, or like people, whatever. Doesn't matter. Point is there are these other versions of spirituality that are like more based on this like energy or like cosmic energy or like universal connectedness. And that's my version of spirituality. And I have an individual version of it, but I've been informed by other things like that. And I think that's cool that he gave that space, even though it wasn't much space. He did give that version of spirituality space, which was cool.
Yeah.
And that was one of our questions. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
And the author talks about there being different groups with people you do and don't know. And Saxon was drawn to the sex stuff like a fucking 12-year-old boy. And then Chelsea sees Rick and runs to him. She's thrilled. She's so excited that he's alive.
So cute. He's smiling for once. He smiled at her. It was so cute. I was like, Rick did. I was like, okay, so now we know. He is happy that he got to push the old man over in his chair.
And then he tells her he got a monkey off of his back, and Sax tears up, maybe because he was feeling genuinely. I wonder how many times he's genuinely felt connected to someone in any sort of deeper way. Probably not very much, which is sad.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. He really like felt changed by her. It felt like.
Yeah, which is cool. I liked.
So sweet.
I thought it was really funny. I don't know why I found this funny. Well, maybe, I don't know. But when she was like, oh, you finished that fast. And he's like, yeah, it was like, yeah, I know how to read. I went to Duke. Like I went to because Duke. I think he comes off so stupid that you forget that he might actually be kind of an intelligent person. And I think it speaks to the different ways in which people can both be intelligent and be deeply dense in some ways. And I think that
or be focused on the sex stuff.
Yeah, focused on the sex stuff and their smoothies and money.
Yes, exactly. No, I liked that because that's how I felt her role was with him, was that she woke up that part of him. And so like he felt changed by her because of that and then became more vulnerable. And then that made it more painful when she was so happy back with Rick.
Yeah, because it reminded him that giving a little bit maybe doesn't get you a different person or a person who does not like you, which maybe that's why he was so drawn to her too, is that she was not interested in him at all. But hey, at least it led to a good outcome. Maybe he'll be a slightly kinder human moving forward, but who knows?
Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully.
So then Piper and Victoria were shopping. I thought this was very silly because she was like, got it, or whatever. She was just thrilled.
She's so funny. And meanwhile, Tim is like, fuck.
We got no money. And then Tim talks to Lockie about whether he could live with no money. I saw this meme of like, it was like from The Office, that one HR guy who took notes. And it was like Tim asking the kids if they could live without money and like taking notes of if they were going to die.
That's so good. We love Toby in our household. We talk about Toby all the time. I'm going to tell you about that meme. That's great. That's so funny.
And then Lockie was like, yeah, I think I could live without money. And then he tells Locke to go do something. And we see him considering the suicide fruit tree thing.
Which is a real fruit, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I will also say, by the way, like I heard somebody say, or like saw something, maybe it was on Twitter or something, or X, that they were like, do you think that Lachlan really could live without money because he's just a people pleaser? He probably just said it because the dad said, you could live without money, couldn't you? But when I watched it back the second time, he does not say that. He does say it very openly. He says, do you think you could live without money? I mean, no money, no house, nothing. And like, obviously saying that, like, I mean, no money, no house, like, obviously that means like you're trying to, there's like that kind of presents what you're probably looking for. But it also kind of presents like you could say no to this because it means nothing. It means you had to have nothing, like no house. So it's okay if you say no, like in some ways you could think of it that way. I felt like Lachlan could live without money, and I think he meant it.
I do too. I think he has a lot more psychological resilience than the rest of that crew. But I guess we won't actually know.
I know. And also, though, that was like his period of like not being a pleaser. Like the whole day, he was like, fuck all y'all. I'm not going to be a pleaser anymore. This guy's mad at me about it. Because the truth is, if you try to please everyone, you please no one. Right? Like that's the point. And so therefore, he tried to please. He got to the point of even trying to please Saxon, and therefore like is like realizing you fail if you try to do that. He thought that he was helping Piper by staying at the monastery with Piper. Piper said, no, I can't let you do that. So he was like, I thought that would make you happy. So he failed at making Saxon happy. He failed at making her happy, and then he's sitting there reading. Like, I guess, it's like something about that. Like, so I think the day when he comes back in and his mom is like, what happened? He's like, fuck it. Like, I don't know. So I think that idea is like the whole day now becomes about him just like, fuck it. And now I realize it's not working. What's going to happen? Like, what am I going to do for myself?
Mm-hmm.
So Valentine tells, I'm sorry, we're good. Yeah. So is it gay talk, guy talk? For some reason, I was saying it earlier. And for some reason now when I'm saying it, I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Gay talk, guy talk. Guy talk? Is it guy talk? Is that why we were saying gay talk earlier and gay talk's wrong? Or is it gay talk?
I might have said gay talk. I think
it might be guy talk.
It might be guy talk. Okay.
I think so. Now I don't know, to be fucking clear. Also, cute as fuck. Guy talk is so fucking cute. Like, holy fuck. I can't even stand it. And then also the actor used to be in the Marines in, I think, Thailand. And so he's like very buff. And Mike White told him no more working out so that you can look less assuming.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's a very good looking guy. He also has a British accent. Very cute. I like him a lot. Mm-hmm. Also, did you know Lisa is in Blackpink? Do you know Blackpink, the K-pop group?
No, I'm not a K-popper. Yeah. That's
okay. Blackpink's the only one I know of. And that is Mook. So her name's Lisa and she's in Blackpink, which is my only, I guess I know 21 too, which is another K-pop group. But anyway, she's a delight. So that was fun.
Cool.
I will just say those two are cool. He says he knows. So Valentine tells Guy Talk, I know. He's like, I know you know. And please don't say anything because I'd be dead. He was like, all my friends would be dead. And the only reason they're even stealing is just because they wouldn't be able to get a job here. And so like, you got to be able to help us. He ends up at the last note he says is, if you say something, you're killing me. You're killing me. And so like our whole plot with Guy Talk is about like him and his Buddhism and like having that be in contrast with his role. And like, so he's being presented with the fact that even if he tells them about the robbery, he'd be killing this other group of people. And so it like adds a new element to his thinking. Pam offers Tim their phones. She's the delightful like Australian. She offered to put them on the boat because he was like, no. And then he asks her about the suicide fruit. I will say an interesting thing, like I thought this was unresolved and then I was like, well, maybe not, was that Pam seemed to notice that Tim wasn't fucking around. Like he was asking about the suicide fruit for a reason. Like she was like, oh, okay, this is weird. And at first I was like, that's unresolved because shouldn't she be worried about it because she saw that clocked it? But then I was like, no, actually, it's just like other characters like the German guy who's the main guy on the floor. I forget his name, but he also knew when Belinda went to tell him about Greg, he was like, not our business. I don't care. Not our business. So I could see Pam being one of the people that works there, being in a position where she has to just be like, this is weird, but I'm going to leave. Like, not for me to think about.
They probably had that, drilled into them that they're supposed to leave people alone and not ask them questions.
Even if they look like they might commit suicide. Yeah, exactly. Wow. So then Belinda and Zion return to Greg's. Zion negotiates for $5 million. Talk about on the nose. He's like, I have a BMA or BSA. I have a business degree. BMS. BMA? BMA.
Yes. That was so funny and goofy.
Mm-hmm. It really was. He's so cute. Zion is so cute. Hello. And then Tim blends the seeds. We see him blending the seeds to poison the fam. He hides the blender, which becomes important later. Guy Talk tells Mook he's feeling resigned. Yes, exactly. He hides the blender this time, we should say. Guy Talk tells Mook he's feeling resigned to leaving because of his morals, leaving the job, because of his morals being at odds with his role. She tells him he needs to do harm to be able to survive in this world. She's like, you need to do this. And he's like, I don't want to. Like, I shouldn't have to because Buddha wouldn't. And she basically says like, okay, then he says, but where are we going to dinner? She's like, not tonight. And then he's like, well, how about the other night? She's like, I'll let you know. Like, I'll think about it. So obviously she's now making it clear to him because he obviously didn't understand it prior to this. We knew, but he didn't, that she really was only going to be interested in him. She even says, I thought you're motivated. He was like, I'm motivated when I'm confident about myself or I'm confident when I'm good with myself. So Tim takes his last lorazepam. This to me was like a little unbelievable. Like if you were relying that heavily on a bottle of pills, you would notice you were running out before you were running out. You know what I mean? I feel like that, like for him to like pour out the last one and be like, huh, is like kind of unbelievable to me. But maybe that's meant to show like how much of a haze he was in. Yeah, exactly. Right. That seems so to me not true. Like think about your Advil bottle. Like people think about the fact there's only a couple left when there's 5 left, you know?
Right.
So that was unbelievable. Also, the other thing that was unresolved that I felt was not a good unresolved type was about his wife not having lorazepam, even though she depends on lorazepam for the rest of vacation.
That was ridiculous. And then she's just chill with it. That is not how that works. If you're taking lorazepam before a massage, you're pretty addicted. And oh, by the way, withdrawal from that drug can cause you to hallucinate. Like it can be pretty intense withdrawal depending on your dose. So that is not a joke.
Yeah, we never see her withdraw. We never see her get another medication either, but like she also seems the same. She seems the same the whole season long, so it doesn't make sense. That's like not it. That's not how that works, unless she got it from a pharmacy there. But then that is something you could tell us somehow, so that we're not like, why aren't we seeing her get weird now that we're seeing Tim get weird? And why wouldn't she know that Tim's on that? So she knows Tim so well. And like, but I think the point is she's supposed to be oblivious. Her character's supposed to be oblivious, but then at least tell us why she's not withdrawing or what,
Right.
So unresolved.
Something.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you also would think she would have accused someone, like she would have thought of someone to accuse from the boat, and that didn't happen either. So Tim asks the person at dinner about the pina colada fixings being brought to the room, and then the wife was like, "Ooh, okay," and he's like, "Yeah, it's our last night." And then Lachlan's like, "Ooh, that sounds good," and he's like, "No, you're not getting one because you're not 21." So the idea, we realize he's not going to kill Lockie because he thinks Lockie can survive without money. Lori joins Jack and Kate at dinner. They're like, "Wow, I didn't think you were going to make it." Lori shares about her night a little bit. She's like, it was whatever. And then Valentine comes to remind them of the massages and also like warns Jack about the owners coming. Could they take a picture with you? She says, of course. Belinda, this is getting set up for a bigger moment, but that's what that was about. Belinda and Zion talk about how Greg is going to think about the money, and then he's going to let them know, you could even get the money tonight, Zion says to Belinda, because he didn't fully close it, but probably we think did. Chelsea and Rick talk about how Rick is now free. Chelsea says she was worried because she loves him, but wasn't too worried because amor fati. And she's like, know what that means? He says, I don't. She says, it means you have to embrace your fate, good or bad. Okay, this is where this shit gets so real. So I actually went back, when I watched this, let me say this first. People were talking about like crying during the scene later, a sad scene later. People were talking about crying during that. I didn't cry. I thought it was moving, but I didn't cry. When I watched this back, this is when I cried. I was like crying when she was saying this shit because you know what's coming. But at the time we didn't the first time. Right. But she says, and at this point we're linked. So if a bad thing happens to you, it happens to me. And then she says, and then like, so that part is like the part that was intense because it's like, that is exactly what happens. You know, they both have harm come to them later. And then she goes on to the really sweet part, which did affect me the first time, but didn't make me cry. The really sweet part where she says, I think we're going to be together forever. Don't you? And then she like puts her head down, clearly expecting him to say nothing or to scoff because that's what he always does. He's always like, grumble. But that's why I think she's like almost like gets it and is fine with it or like into it even really maybe. And he says, that's the plan, which is so fucking sweet. Even though it's not even like that great, but it's so sweet for Rick. And then she goes, is it? And he goes, yeah. And then he's smiling like cutely and she's fucking beaming face. And she starts crying. I know. I was like, it's so sweet. And they really are together forever. So there you go. Mm-hmm. So that was also something that I think was like a spiritual thing in a different way that like you have to accept your fate. Like fatalism is a spiritual element that like some people have within religion. So that's another moment of the themes things there. I also would say like that's one of the psychological themes is their dynamic of the yin and yang thing about like you trying to fix another person, A, does not work. And then like B, just like don't, you want to have somebody who's like fully born, developed so that you both can be partners in life, like not, rather than sort of thinking like it just creates a power dynamic. Let me put it that way. It creates a power dynamic that's just never going to work. And so that's the part that happens here. Like he has power in some ways and she has power in thinking that she's better than him and is trying to like bring him to her side or whatever. So that's just not, it's like becomes a bit of a battle. And so that is tough, but that was a psychological thing I was thinking about, is sort of like thinking that you need to fix someone or like trying to like bring them into a different way of being. But then it turned out she could do that because he really just needed to get the monkey off his back. And then he was what she needed. He was hopeful and sweet and happy to love her his own way. So it worked out, but it doesn't
that
always.
Night. Yes.
Yeah. So then the last one is the three friends at dinner. Kate shares about her pastor's metaphor. This is another religious thing. The pastor. So I, by the way, didn't even really notice that the first time, but that was a huge moment of religion. Like he's talking about her, talking about her pastor, talking about a metaphor about nurturing soil. Jack said that nothing is more grounding than being with my real friends. It's a lonely world, and I get picked on because of my superficial things, and you guys pick on me for my deep things. And I'm like, and then Lori we like cut to Lori. She's honest. Her face goes straight right away and says, if I'm being honest, I felt sad all week. As you get older, you have to justify your life and your choices. You guys make that particularly transparent for me. I have no belief system. And I had an epiphany. Like she's like, I tried things, but they didn't work. She said, I had an epiphany today that I don't need religion or God because time gives it meaning. We started this life together. We're going through it apart, but we're still here. And I think that means something. I look at you guys and it feels meaningful. Even when we're like laughing about inane shit, it still feels very fucking deep. I'm glad you have a beautiful face and I'm glad you have a beautiful life. And I'm just happy to be at the table. So powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have something? I have something to say about it, but I will hold. Tell me what you think. Tell me your thoughts.
I have a few things to say about it. As someone who has kept friends from childhood and loves my friends from childhood, one in particular, who can also like be like, if we met today, she doesn't listen to this podcast. Maybe she will someday, but I'm sure this wouldn't surprise her. I don't think we would be friends if we met today because we're different. We've come on different journeys, but I love her so much. And there is something so meaningful about our friendship and how we've been friends. Oh, I'm getting teary-eyed. How we've been friends for so many years. Like that, I think I agree. I think it matters. And as life goes on, I think there's been a culture of if people annoy you or you don't feel like they yin or yang, or I guess, I don't mean to use that language, but then you got to cut them off, or boundaries. Right. And I think we've gone a little too far with that, because I agree with what Lori is saying here. I think there is something so valuable in connection and time and working through things with people, and or not, as maybe these women experience sometimes. But I don't know. I thought that was a really great sort of moment in these three characters' friendship. I really liked it.
Totally. And that, like, and also just the ownership or like autonomy of like you have to defend your choices. Like after a certain point, once you're no longer a kid, like you are making choices that affect the rest of your life, and they are only your responsibility. Like we're all responsible for our own behaviors, and we'll blame shit on other people all day because it feels better than believing that it's our fault. But the truth is, like, you make choices and those affect your life. So I think that was an important message to bring up too, because I do think that's a piece of aging that, like, at different ages you realize in a different way. Like, you know, you like hit your 20s and you're like, wow, bills suck. I didn't realize how much bills suck. Or like, you know, and like then you have like a little bit older and you're like, wow, there's like things I've done that I would be doing something totally different if I hadn't done da-da-da. Or and then you get a little older and you're like, wow, I still don't have kids. Or, you know, it's like there's different versions of those that throughout the lifetime. And I thought that was really important to bring that up. And the other thing I thought was, like, basically she's atheist. So this is important to me because another spiritual version, right? Like, to her, she doesn't believe in anything spiritually, really. So, like, therefore, the spiritual-ish thing is time and connection, which is also, like, a sort of spiritual thing and beautiful. And I like that that's where you brought it, too, because that is the point. Like, that is what's beautiful about this speech. And I think that's important. And I heard someone talking about it, and they were like, this sucks for her. Like, she has no belief system. Like, I know people like that, and that's so tough for them. Like, I always fall back on God. Like, thank God I have God. And by the way, totally understand that. That's wonderful for you. And also, I don't think you or we need to judge her version of this, because she's not missing God or like missing a religion. That's not really the point of this thing. She actually talks about having found something that works. And I think that person took this speech to like mean that like she's not happy, like she's desperate because she doesn't have something like that. I don't think that was the point. I think the point was like, actually, I do have something, and I should recognize what I do have. So I think that otherwise it's sort of like an unfair take on atheism. So like, you know, I don't think everyone's like, oh no, I don't have something to fall back on if they're atheistic. So I'm glad that Mike White brought it up, and I'm glad that he didn't land on her being like, oh no, I have no belief system. This is awful.
I do want to say one thing about Kate too, because I think that of the three of them, Kate was the most other-centered, I would say. I would say that Jack and Lori were both pretty self-centered at time, and it could cause conflict. I think it was interesting to see Kate, who, yes, is a Trump supporter, probably, not be villainized, and to show the really great traits that she has, to not like blacken. And what I think I was gleaming for that and thinking about is like, I don't really believe in God like that. Maybe there's something going on. But I think religion gives people a sense of community and something outside of themselves. And I think that is an important thing for human beings that Kate has, that maybe the other two didn't, coming into this trip in the same way. That was interesting. And I'm not sure what Mike White was trying to say about that, but I found it interesting.
That like you feel like he's giving her the qualities of being able to like look at what others are doing and saying that that's because she's religious, that she's like that.
Or more community oriented, maybe. Like, I think religion and her life has given her community, and maybe that has allowed her to step outside of herself more. Not because of religion, but because of the community element of it, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. No, it definitely does. That does make sense. I think there's also like, you know, like Lachlan is also very other-centered. Like, you know, there's like other versions of it that to me like don't necessarily mean it's connected to religion for like, because I know you're saying community, but like that's like from being at church. And I think there's also something about like believing in God that like gives you another person that you know is with you all the time. Like I think that's another thing that could pull you in that way, just like the community could. But yeah, I don't know if I like connected that necessarily to that. If he is like, right, like what you're saying, like I'm not sure what he means. If he is, then that is kind of shitty, like honestly, because then he's like basically saying like being atheistic or other versions means that you're not, like, right, like even like the Buddhism part means like non-attachment to others and non-attachment to objects, and everything is what it is, like there's sort of like that kind of an element to it. So like that one's less about community as well. Like you might be, if you're in a monastery, you're very solo, like you're like there solo. And so I think that would be like really kind of unfairly shitting on everything else. But like, so if he is doing that, which I definitely think he could be, then that's kind of shitty. I'm interested what his religion is, honestly. I've been wondering that. I'm assuming he was raised Christian, and that's like such a like, assumptive thing about him being American, because we're just a Christian-centric country, but I'd be interested to know.
Yeah. And maybe I agree, for Lori, having her epiphany that she had, I think was super important. And maybe it's more about, and that was not community based. So maybe it's more about like finding what jives or something, or what gives you that verve or that sense of something. I don't know. Yeah. It seems like Kate has that in her life. And it feels well, yeah,
so does Jacqueline though.
Yeah.
Technically, right? Like she's not worried either, or whatever. She's not the depressed, disappointed one either, or whatever, like that.
That's true. But she was so, when she thought that dude was who she was dating was not like into her, I felt like she crumbled very quickly. Where it seems like Kate has more of a solid foundation. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it feels intentional. I'm not sure what he's trying to say. I do think there's something to church gives people a sense of community. And I do think 100%. That people have less community these days, right? Like that feels
just at large.
Yeah. So that maybe that's all that he was trying to say, but it did feel notable to me and got me thinking about
felt
what
like
he was...
Kate, think about what he meant by that, with her being like other-centered in a way they couldn't be. I totally agree. And also, sorry to jump in, I was just gonna say, I also found her like kind of lacking depth. Like she was other-centered to the extent that we don't know anything about her. Like I didn't learn anything about her. I don't know about her politics. I don't know. Like I knew it was like implied she's a Trumper, and then like but she got like no intrapersonal richness, and so I think that is also a downside, and maybe that's also a downside of being religious with believing in God, because then you feel like there's less of a like, you think things are just going to happen no matter what. You're going to go to heaven if you're good. You're going to whatever. So like in that way, you don't have to like develop a sense of self in some ways. Like you're like out whatever that word is. There's God takes care of it for you, so you don't really have to like work on things like that, I suppose. But I don't know. I found her character like also to me to me, it's like I also wouldn't want to be friends with her either.
Yeah, I know. I think I would find her boring. I don't think she would be the type of person I would gravitate towards necessarily. Yeah. And I noticed that in the dynamic, she was the one to kind of de-escalate things. Yeah, you're right. She's probably not the most fun person to hang with.
Or even just like rich or like depth. Yeah. It's like missing depth or something. Like it's not even that she's not fun, but like that is part of it, right? It's a little less interesting if she doesn't have depth. But we never really saw her go deep. And like Lori's point was like, even when we're talking about inane shit, it feels deep. But like, maybe that's why that's important, because it's like they don't really go deep.
Yeah. And her and Jacqueline felt like the two forces, and Kate felt like less of a force in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't know.
I looked it up, and Mike White is from a conservative Christian background. So not shocking in ways, because that also could be his bias coming through with Kate's character. And/or I think it could be, there's she contains multitudes in the way that she doesn't contain multitudes.
Totally.
But so it could also be his bias coming through. But I actually felt like he did some of these things a justice that I was grateful for. Like I was grateful he brought that to the table, atheism, and like brought to the table. Like I felt like Lori's speech was all about the fact that she's like, I can be atheistic and not need a religion and still be like spiritual and also like grateful. And so to me, that was like a resolved ending for that speech. It wasn't like, oh no, I'm suffering because I don't have a religion. I didn't feel like that. So I like that. And also, if she's like respecting that time and friendship over time is what's important, then she's going to go home and find community. Like that's what the next stage is, you know? So that's lovely. You don't need to be, you know, God-centered to find it. Maybe that's, like you said, maybe that's what the point was there. And then the last thing was that then they like are all tearful and say, I love you to each other. And then they start giggling. And then from then on, they're giggling for the rest of the night. Like they're at home cuddling and giggling. It's very cute.
It was sweet. Mm-hmm. And then we go from that to fucking Tim making these murder fucking, what's that, Jonestown, where they drink the Kool-Aid?
Yes. And they actually drank Flavor Aid, by the way. It was Flavor Aid. Oh. Technically, they say drink the Kool-Aid. The expression drink the Kool-Aid came from Jonestown, but technically what they drank at Jonestown was Flavor Aid.
Flavor Aid. Wow. Mm-hmm. Damn. So Tim's making these pina coladas and the family stands around and starts drinking it. And Lachlan, or not Lachlan, who's the other one?
Saxon.
Saxon was like, they were all like, this tastes weird. Yeah. And then all of a sudden then he gets stressed and says the coconut milk is off, and then like
he's like, the coconut milk is off.
It gets really weird, and then he's like, no, don't drink anymore. But then he doesn't fucking clean out he should have cleaned it out. That was a weird bad choice.
Earlier he knew to hide it, but this time he didn't hide the blender.
Yes. And then we see Belinda get the money. Tim says he's going to bed and Victoria stops him so they can have wine together. Fine.
Did you notice, the only thing I would add about that, did you notice that she then asked Lockie to go get the opener and glasses? I was like, you're asking the one person who's not allowed to drink to like go get the things for drinking? Or are we letting him drink now? Anyway, I was just sort of like, well, it sucks for him.
Yeah, heightening the dynamic.
People pleaser.
Yep. Oof. So Belinda gets the money, which is great. They then cut to the screaming monkey, which felt like a little racist and weird. I know they've been showing the monkeys all season, but I don't know. I just didn't think it was right after time for that. Yeah, kind of a weird
And I guess
choice.
Also because her eyes were like widened really big, and then they showed a monkey that was screaming in particular. So like had really wide eyes as well. So like, that does. And also like that it would be an angry monkey, angry black woman type of fucking bad vibe there.
Ugh, yeah. I don't like it for Mike White. So
no,
not the best.
No.
But happy that Belinda gets the money. I think it's great. And thrilled for her.
Little repentance. Or not repentance, reparation. It's a little baby reparation just for her. Yeah.
Yes. She deserves the W on that one. I mean, I genuinely think things would have gone badly for her if she didn't take the money. I think it was the right choice. And I'm glad her son encouraged her towards that choice.
Me too. There's a lot there too. It's really interesting. And then also like, I think she deserved the W. I also think that, we'll talk about it when we get there because there's another thing about that he says. I might as well wait for the thing when he says it. How about that?
Sounds good. And then Guy Talk goes in to walk with Pilek, and Guy Talk tells him he's thinking of leaving his job, and Pilek says he should take the time to consider. I kind of think the guy... Oh, go ahead.
No, you
I
first.
think Guy Talk should leave the job. I don't think he's very good at it. I think that's a good moment of self-awareness for him. He has had a lot of mishaps at this job thus far. It might be time to take the L on this one.
Yeah. I mean, leaving a gun out on a counter is like a fucking never ever type of thing. And like he even said, the real person, Time, I think his name is Tame. It's Tayme, but it might be Time or Tame. He said in an interview, he was like, that hurt me because he's from the military. So like for him, like having to leave the gun there, like made him hurt as a human, but not as a character. Like the fact it didn't hurt the character is a problem. Like that's something Guy Talk should not have a gun if he doesn't know how to gun safety. I don't get stolen therefore, which is exactly what could happen. I was also going to say we skipped over just real quick when the bodyguards go up to Guy Talk and they praise his toughness. And the first time I watched it, I thought they were making fun of him. And the second time I realized they were not. And they were talking about when he like fended off the thieves. at the gate, and then he got like banged in the head or whatever. And so they were like, how's your head? And he was like, I'm fine. And they're like, wow, you're tough, like good for you. But because it was like translated into English, it like looked like he was like good for you, you know, or whatever. So but I think they actually meant like good for you, you're tough. And I thought this the second time watching it, it was interesting because that like adds to Guy Talk's like dilemma. Like that's like someone being like, you're good at this, like why, you know, like look at you, like, and the people that he aspired to be bodyguards. He wanted to be a bodyguard telling him he's tough. So now when he goes into Pelek, there is a part of him that's like, maybe I don't want to leave. Like that kind of strengthens that part. So when Pelek is like, think about it, I feel like that's part of why that was like, like in that order.
Yeah. Oh. Well, then we go to Belinda and Zion talking about the money and about Greg calling to make sure she holds up her end of the bargain. And she says she would. She tells him they need to leave. Good call. She wants to be hard to find. And then Zion says, what about your man, your spa? And she goes, can't I just be rich for 5 fucking minutes? Which I think is very fair. Yes, you can. And then he has his meditation appointment and says, we're too rich to be stressed. And she said, if I'm paying for it, you're going.
Which I loved. Yeah. Partly because it like that's a remnant of not being rich. Like when you're not rich, you're like, you have to do it because I spent money on it. When you're rich, you're like, I don't care, whatever, you know? So like, I think that the fact that she said that was like a cute little like period in terms of like, but she's not fully, you know, like she's not fully gone to us. She's like, there's still part of her, you know, that's still living in like how she's been or whatever. I think the capitalism of this is like immense, you know, like it's immense. It's like she's giving up her dream because of the money. And that's like rich in some ways because it's sort of like we dream because what we're dreaming for is like success in our country, and success in our country is money. And so like if you have money, do you no longer dream about things because you don't have to? Like what is there? You know what I mean? Like you don't have to be successful. To me it's fulfillment. So that's not what, you know, but if that's not your, you know, so it's like sort of how that could be dangerous. Like if like, because then you stop, right? And I think there is an emptiness to people who are like very, 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 very rich, and like that's something people talk about is sort of like this emptiness feeling or whatever. And so that could be a piece of it. It's like then because you have everything, there's nothing you can't have or do. You know, that kind of creates this like less of a like longing for things, and therefore less dreaming or visioning or whatever. So I thought that was interesting about her character because that's kind of what happened. She like no longer needs her dream. Frankly, right now she'll go back to it, I'm sure, but you know, she's like, let's just be rich right now. Fuck it.
You see Greg, who has everything you could ever want, having killed an heiress, and he seems so fucking sad and small this season. And I thought that was a great choice. I think every time I looked at him, I felt sad, and I didn't necessarily feel that way in past seasons about him. But
no, definitely not.
Yeah,
he was definitely empty,
really sad. Yeah. Ugh, makes me sad.
No, me too. Yeah. So I'm worried about that for Belinda, honestly. Like, I hate that that's sort of where she's headed, technically, if we follow through the theme that's here, but also it's like correct, right? Like, I think that is what happens. I think there is like that element with capitalism. It's an empty pursuit.
Yeah. Then we see Lockie make a protein shake with the pina colada mix. Not interested in cleaning out that blender.
I have a theory about that though. Like if his dad had let him try it the night before, would he have cleaned it out? Because like I feel like he was like, oh, it's okay. Like I kind of wanted to try that. Maybe I'll leave it in. Like because he thinks about it. We see him think about it and then decide to go for it. So I feel like maybe if he'd tried it and hated it, he would have cleaned it.
I think so. Yeah, it was an interesting, sad moment because he got a lot of it.
Yes, he did.
And then we see Chelsea and Rick talking at breakfast. This is a big scene. Okay, this was one of my holes that I noticed in episode. Why in the fuck did he come back to this hotel that is owned by the man that he shoved? It was a weird choice to me where it's like, you got to get out of there. You hardcore assaulted someone. Someone who's very rich, like you should really go. That felt weird to me.
And the bodyguards saw you there, and also like you sent them in so that you could run away because you knew the bodyguards would try to get you, so like you know they're going to be there again, right? Like, you know. Yeah,
that one was bizarre, but
I thought of that too.
I don't know, maybe his subconscious was really strong and he still wanted it to get fucked up or something. I don't know.
Right. Or like felt that strong over the old man, like felt like he wasn't actually a threat to him and that like he won in some way or something. Like, because the other thing too, I thought of it as well. And my first thought was like, he shouldn't have stayed at that hotel. He should stay at another one and then like, come visit. And then I was like, well, no, he tried to like be around so he could just like happen to see the owner or whatever. It's like, I get that. But yeah, he could have moved after they got back. He did say we're on the first boat. So I get there's sort of that. Like maybe he thought they wouldn't come that fast back. But and they wouldn't have necessarily, except that Jacqueline was there.
Yeah. Oof.
So we'll end with the scene between Chelsea and Rick at breakfast. And that's where shit starts to pop off. So that's going to be great. It's going to be where things are going to start to blow up in everybody's faces and new things will happen for every character, basically. But in the meantime, enjoy your week. We'll just see you next session. No, I'll tell you other things first. We have like things like social media and stuff. Find us on like, first of all, Patreon and help out because it's like $5 for a fucking month. Or we can even give you, and most likely will because you're probably going to be the only one who does it at the time, give you a whole year of free membership because we're doing that for the first 5 or so people that join. Then we're also going to give, $10 a year to ACLU once we get 50 members. Whenever that is, we'll do that. So patreon.com/realitytest, capital RT. And then you also might look up @realitytest in the search bar. We're also on Instagram at Dr. K Pods, at Dr. Ray Pods. We're on TikTok at Dr.realitv, REALITV. We're on YouTube and Facebook at Reality Test Pod. So that's the name of the page on Facebook, and it's at Reality Test Pod in one handle on YouTube. And then email, realitycheckpodding@gmail.com.
And please rate, review, subscribe. We are so happy to have you all as listeners. And as
watch
Dr.
our video
Kay
version.
Said, watch the videos, join our Patreon. And we will see you next session.
See you next session.